Hello, everyone. My name is Julie McVey, and this is Unordinary Made Ordinary, where we talk about extraordinary experiences of everyday people. And today, our guest is Derek Riddle. Welcome, Derek.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. If you would, could you share with us just a little bit of background on who you are, Derek?
My name is Derek Michael Riddle. I live in Washington State, up towards Canada, the very northeast part of it. I'm 47 years old, single dad. I have a 16-year-old daughter at home. I was in a union for 15 years before I had my accident, which led me into this story, but now I am medically retired, so I spend my days trying to strategically nap.
All right. Well, thank you for that. Now, what I'd like to do, if it's okay with you, is maybe you can just sort of walk us up to, what led into your near-death experience, and then maybe share what happened.
Okay. I took an airplane ride from here, Washington State, down to Las Vegas. I was going down there to land in Vegas, drive about 80 miles down the road to a little town called Pahrump. I was going to help my grandmother load up a U-Haul and then drive it all the way back to Washington, all the way up through everything. And immediately upon landing, I started feeling like these waves overcoming me, overcoming my body. And a few days before that, I was really lethargic and getting sick. And just a couple seconds of backstory, I had a surgery 90 days before that, an internal surgery. And in the process, I did not know, but my spleen had been lacerated, and I was sewn back up and sent on my way. And a few weeks down the road, I had a seizure, and it was the toxins that was leaking out of my spleen, and I didn't know it. I went to the hospital. They told me I was having an allergic reaction to something, sent me home. Second time I had a seizure a couple more weeks later. It was kind of mild, but I was just really shaking. And I thought it was weird, but I was also raised where, you scrape your knee, just rub some dirt on it.
Yeah.
Just like, all right, this will pass, whatever. I do have problems with anxiety and whatnot, so I just thought, this is a bad one. But the third one that finally happened was I started convulsing, and within 10 minutes, my lips were turning blue, and they sent me to the emergency room. Same thing. They couldn't figure it out. I spent hours there, and I had to get on a plane the next morning to go do this drive. And the last thing they said was like, well, we can send you in for an MRI. I'm like, you know what, if you guys don't know by now, I got things to do. And at that point, what had happened was my spleen had bled out so much that it had manifested a huge abscess on the inside. And when I got on that plane, the pressurization from the cabin is what, and it popped.
Gotcha.
Anyhow, we got there, we loaded up, we spent all day loading this U-Haul, and we were going to hit the road at 7 the next morning. And I was just, that whole night, I was like, oh my God, like, why am I hurting? I had the cold chills, and I was like, no, geez, there's something going on here. And I mean, it was hurting. It was hurting bad. It felt like I had a bunch of just heavy concrete in my guts. I couldn't, standing up felt like somebody was taking my insides and just stretching them. And so I called my grandma, and because I've been up all night, and I'm like, Grandma, I think there's something wrong. And she was like, okay, well, what's wrong? Everybody's ready. And I mean, at this point, like, she had so much stuff. I flew 2 people down with me to help me do this stuff. There was a car that had to be driven back. There was my grandma that had to be looked after. There was a full 20-foot U-Haul truck. I mean, this was a big move, and everybody's waiting on me. And I had this split-second decision, like, I can tough this out. We've got other people that can drive. I can pull up in a ball. I'll be, I'll just figure out when I get there. And just something told me, no, just get checked, And They took me in, went into the emergency room. They checked me. I told them, I had this surgery a few months before, and I don't think it could have been. I don't know. And they sent me in for an emergency MRI, and they came back like 20 minutes later, and they were like, okay, well, Mr. Riddle, you're going to go for a helicopter ride today.
Oh, man.
Really? And
not what you want to hear.
no, and they flighted me to Spring Valley Memorial there in back to Las Vegas.
Okay. Not was that your first time on a helicopter? Probably a good ride.
Get one picture, and it's a straight shot of my feet looking out the window, the big window right before we take off. And I will say, for the little bit that I looked around, way better than an airplane, because it's like full aerial view, not just your window out of that.
Yeah, but that's not a really good reason to go on a helicopter ride.
No.
Okay, so please continue.
Okay, so so we get there, and they're bringing me off the hospital gurney, or out of the helicopter onto the gurney, and they're switching stuff around, and as they're wheeling me in, they're asking me, is it okay if you need blood? Is it okay to give you blood? Like that. And I was like, yeah, it's okay. And they were like, okay, you need to sign these papers. And I'm, I'm out of it. I'm like this, and I'm like, okay. And
wow.
Then they said, is there any emergency contacts or kin in case of it? And at that point, when they said that, like right after they asked if I could get blood, and they said that, it was all happening so fast and dawning on me, like, this is it. This is it. This is scary. This is really happening, and they took me in. I remember them putting the mask on me and everything. I remember them telling me they were going to take good care of me and whatnot. And I was laying there, and I just remember thinking, okay, that, let's just hope everything is okay. And I closed my eyes, and when I did open them back up, and this is just like if you're looking out of your eyes straight ahead. When I opened my eyes back up, it was a huge crowd in front of me. Down below my feet, I was like up above them, and I could see above them, and they were all on like this really big platform, and this platform went really deep and long.
Okay.
And this platform was also deep and heavy all the way towards the back.
Wow.
And in the back was bad energy, bad energy, like murderers, rapers. And when I say bad energy, I don't mean just like killers. I mean like these people that own corporations and still steal all their employees' retirement funds, and now these people are homeless. I mean, that like the truly don't care bad people.
Can you slow down 1 second or move back a little bit? I was kind of thrown off. So you said that moment you close your eyes, you open them, and you're it's somewhere else. This was when they were taking you off the plane?
I'm sorry, what was that last part?
When was it? Was it when they were taking you off the plane that then you close your eyes, you open them, and then?
No, it was, they took me off the helicopter.
I mean, the helicopter.
They asked me about, giving me blood, and I'm signing these papers. They asked me about emergency contacts, and this is all as they're wheeling me in, and they're asking me these things, and asking me what I was doing before I got there, and I said helping my grandmother. I'm supposed to be moving a U-Haul back to Nevada, and just small talk. And then when they put the mask on me, and they said, okay, just start breathing in, and that's when they put it on me, and then I was just taking a breath, because they were prepping me for emergency surgery at that point, and so I was just taking a breath, and I just thought,
all of a sudden, okay, wow. And then can you remind me, how long ago was this?
This was October 16th. It was October 15th of 2020 that I flew there. So this is all going on by 10 a.m. October 16th in the morning.
Okay, this is pretty recent.
Yeah, yeah, it was of 2020.
Wow. Okay. So you open your eyes, and do you feel physical,
Well,
and do you
first,
remember?
when I opened my eyes, I was just absorbing everything in because I'm looking and I'm like, what is this? And I'm looking at this huge crowd, and as I'm looking the crowd, it's coming to me what this crowd is. And I'm looking at this huge crowd, I'm seeing everything, and I'm feeling like the energy of the badness. And that's where the bad people there. And for
Okay.
some reason, I don't know why, but I feel like that they have to be back there for 900 years. I don't know why that number comes
Huh.
into my head, but it feels like that's where they have to be. And as the
Okay.
crowd faded out, it broke off into separate lines. And these lines all got long. And the energy, as it broke into the lines, also faded from bad to better.
Hmm.
And as it got up here towards the more where the lines were breaking off, and they were all singular, there was, I want to call it like a slipstream. It was like like the teller at the bank, but it was kind of like Finding Nemo, like that type of.
Yeah, and you
And
jump in and
yeah, and as I looked, they would step in, and that would be, and what that was.
wow.
And when I saw that, it all made sense. What that was there was the recycling station for when you come back because you did not pass this test correctly, and you have to do it again because this is a test. Life is a test. You have to pass it and you have to finish it.
Mm.
Okay, you have to go back. You can't do this much good work and then give up at the end. And
No
no,
cheating.
no cheating, no cheating.
Yeah.
There's no cheating there. It's so weird because seeing all that, the way everything came to me and the way everything made sense, like the commandments of the Bible. You know, I was raised as a Catholic, very, very Catholic. My mother Hispanic, and we had candles in the corner of the house and everything.
Okay.
And as I grew up and learning more about religion and the Roman Catholic scandals and stuff like that, we don't have to get into that. But that made me question, like, you know, what is this? This is not honoring thy man and being good and everything. And
Right.
I always felt like it should come down to morals and seeing. And
Had you previously believed in reincarnation, or was this your first?
I've always had an open mind.
Hmm.
You know, the spirit world. My mother, like I said, very, very Catholic, so she very much believed in spirits.
Yeah.
When I was like 12, I brought home a Ouija board with a friend, just messing around, playing.
Hmm.
She came in, and I'd never seen that side of my mother till I saw that side of my mother. I mean, she had the priest from the church come to the house and throw a blessing on it afterwards.
Oh,
I mean,
wow. Okay.
she was that adamant about that was a doorway to the spirits and blah blah.
Not a good idea
No,
in her.
and
Yeah.
she let me watch horror movies and stuff, and I saw The Exorcist when I was 7, so that didn't really help either.
Okay.
Right, but other than that, just ghosts and things like that. I've always had a mind going to church and the afterlife and spirits like that, and the whole, like, what I felt was like it was all about your free will and your choices.
So you're not in the crowd. You're kind of watching from
I'm
above.
I'm above the crowd looking at this, almost like I'm observing what all this is.
Okay.
And I'm watching all of it, and
Hmm.
I'm observing what it is. And as it's all clicking to me what it is, I'm like, oh, these are the bad. Oh, okay. Oh, these are the ones that are getting ready to start their turnover. Oh, and these ones, they were okay. I guess these guys were mostly good because they're up towards the front of the line, or they've
Huh.
already waited their turn all the way up to finally getting up to there. And
There was a bunch of break-offs, though, you said, right? A lot of little break-offs.
yeah, like this whole crowd, like it came like the thick of the crowd, and then it started to break off into singular lines going this way until it
Okay.
got to the screen right there. And it was
The
like
singular lines, did they seem you know how you're saying, oh, in the back, it's kind of really negative energy and then the energy improves a little bit. Were all of those lines like equal kinds of energy, or were those different as well?
They were different. And every one of
Mm,
those lines, like everybody had their own destination, but every one of those lines, it was somewhere, something else, something different,
huh.
something everybody where you were going and coming back, it was definitely something with a soul, whether it was a human or an animal.
But you're saying they all went to planet Earth, though, as far as you know,
It's coming back here. Yeah, it's
coming back
recycling the
here.
energy to come back here. Like I'm
Oh, okay.
realizing
So
this is the system as like I'm realizing like, wow, this is seems to be how this works.
interesting.
Yeah. And it was at that point, like right when it clicked, everything all at once. I looked up like this to my left and I saw a really bright light. And it was like this up in the corner coming down that way.
Uh-huh.
And it was like a fluorescent light, like really bright. You could look at it, but it didn't burn your eyes.
Hmm.
But when I looked up and I saw that light, I looked right down. And I didn't look down because it burned my eyes. I instantly looked down like I'm not worthy. I felt like don't even,
Oh, wow.
and
Wow.
um so I looked back down and I was pulled to look back up like that again. And I turned like that. And
Mm,
what I felt up there were energies. It was a council of beings. It was not a singular thing.
okay.
It was a council of beings. And the communication that we had, it was, I guess you could say, like telepathic. Like there was no beginning or end of a sentence. It was just back and forth, the exchange of information. And
Interesting.
all they asked me was, do you believe in God? And like I said earlier, like, I was raised religious and, I questioned things about, there's just certain things you don't do moral wise. And I've always tried to be a good person. I mean, I'm not saying I'm a saint or anything, but when I relayed back, they said, do you believe in God?
Hmm.
And I basically relayed back, I think you should just be a good person. It instantly,
Huh.
it looked like a deck of cards in front of my face like this. It just instantly started flashing and it was my life in
Huh.
front of my eyes.
Okay.
And when it did that, it was like flashing, spinning, and it popped out in an orb, two orbs right next to me like that. And I turned and I looked at these orbs. And in the first orb, true story, I was like 6, almost 7, something like that. I woke up at like 2 a.m, had to go to the bathroom, went to the bathroom. On the way back out, 2 a.m, I decided I'm going to turn on the TV. I turn on the TV and the commercial comes on and it's showing the kids like in Africa, the starving kids, and send money and help them. And it was, this is during the 80s when they showed the really bad ones where they were really skinny with the
Mm-hmm.
and I saw that and I was just like, "Wah!" And I just
Mm.
started wailing. I was uncontrollable.
Oh,
My
yeah.
mom comes ripping out of her room. I don't, what the, Mijo, what? And I look at her and I'm crying. I'm all, why do they have to be hungry, Mom? That's not fair.
Yeah.
And I just remember like my mom looking at me. I mean, she's got sleep in one eye. She comes ripping out of bed because I'm screaming. She don't know what's going on. And all of a sudden I'm questioning her on why there's hungry kids
Yeah.
in the world. And I just remember it was like a stare and she was just,
Mhm.
oh, mijo. And she just shook her head and she said, come here. And she took me back to bed and she kind of just gave me a talk about how, God loves all children. And sometimes some are more fortunate and
Mm.
sometimes some aren't, which is why we should always be thankful and whatnot. And I was just like, okay. And that was the first memory. The second memory in the second org, when I looked down and saw that go through. The second memory was I looked down. This is the same house, but years later. And next door, we had a couple of older boys by like a couple of years that lived there, and they were twins, John and Jamie.
Mm.
And my mom had been working graveyard at that time. And, at that time in the 80s, you worked graveyard and left your, you know, 10-year-old kid at home or whatever, you know, nobody, whatever.
Yeah.
But I asked her, since she was staying there, I was like, hey, how about I spend the night over at John and Jamie's and I can go trick-or-treating with his mom and them. And she was like, oh yeah, that'd be a great idea. Well, it was just me and John and Jamie going, no adults. So they told me, bring a pillow sack off your pillow. So I grabbed the pillow sack. Now we are 3 boys trick-or-treating. I mean, we were running between doors. That was our mission.
Yeah.
Candy.
Oh yeah.
So I'm watching this and it shows me, and I see myself get home and I sit down and I'm like, all right. And I'm just reaching in, I'm starting to eat my candy. And there's a knock at the door. And I'm like, okay, and I answer the door, trick or treat, or trick-or-treaters. Like, okay. I look around real quick and mom didn't buy any candy. So I'm like, oh, great. All right. Well, here's a couple pieces of my candy. Cool. All right. Have a good night, guys. 5 minutes later, knock, knock, trick or treat. I'm like, oh my God, what do I do?
Oh no.
I ended up that night, had so many trick-or-treaters, they just wouldn't stop coming. And I was giving out more candy, and the more I gave out, the more I got mad. And until finally I was like, I'm sorry, we don't have any more, because I gave out all my candy.
Oh, gee. Yeah.
So yeah, when my mom came home the next morning, the end of that memory was me sitting there the next morning when my mother came home from work. And she said, all right, where's that candy? She's ready to dig in.
Yeah.
I told her what happened and gave it all out. She's like, well, why did you do that? And I looked right at her and said, because I didn't have the heart to tell them we didn't have any.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that was the end of that memory. And at the end of playing that memory, I looked back and I was being lowered into this crowd. And at this point, as I was being lowered into this crowd, those orbs was like one big orb around me. And I started being pulled through this crowd, and these crowds were starting to, they like wrapped around, and there were people in there that I could close my eyes and I could see their face crystal clear. And I know if I ever see them in real life,
You still remember?
I'll know it.
Wow.
I'll know it. But it was weird because as I started going like that through the crowd, they were blurry until they got right about here. So just a couple seconds of like, oh. And there were 3 people that I saw on there that I know from my past that are still alive, that I saw in line.
Okay.
And I have not told any of them.
Oh, that's interesting. So, you know, when you're telling the story, I'm thinking these are all people that have passed on already, but no, not necessarily.
And not necessarily, because those people that I saw, like, they're still alive. And see, and here's the thing. I want to go back to say, like, I'm just a regular dude. But these people that are still alive, I feel like after what I've been through, and these are people that I've known over 20 years, like the choices that they've made in life, I think I don't think there's any turning back from what they've done.
Okay,
And,
all 3 of them in your
and like
know
I
them
said,
well. Okay, and they have been making poor decisions.
And poor decisions, and basically just being black-hearted and not caring about. You know, like I said, that energy in the back, that bad energy, it wasn't just violent energy. It was emptiness. It was zero empathy. It was everything the opposite of love.
Yeah. Okay.
But
and you didn't tell them that you saw them in this predicament?
No, I haven't told them.
Okay.
I 2 of them.
You don't think they'll see this?
You know, I'm sure they probably have heard. I mean, I talk about my experience openly because, you know, it took me a few days of this going over and over through my head of, you know, like, like what the hell just happened? That was
sure.
so good.
But you had heard of near-death experiences probably, right? Before this.
Oh yeah, I'd heard of them. I'd kind of watched them, but
some people I've interviewed, they had them so many years ago, and they had never even heard of near-death experiences, and they didn't even know how to make sense of it at all.
Yeah, you know, I've always kind of believed in ghosts and spiritual stuff, and anyway, when they pulled me through this through this crowd, and it was like after they did that review and I saw those memories, they pulled me through the crowd. And as I got through the crowd and I came to the end, there were doors that looked like big metal doors with the handles, like they look like on the gym at school, the big they open up with the like high school doors, metal ones, and they were all chained up. But as my sphere or whatever, my bubble was pulled up to it, the chains, they just broke and they opened it up. And when I came in, I was at my childhood best friend's funeral. Now, I won't say his name, but my childhood best friend knows who he is, and he has seen this. And he was in his coffin, and I saw his wife and his 2 daughters and his son. And from what I saw, everything there, if I had to date it then, it would have been about 3 to 4 years in the future. And so it's already been over a year something now. But
so these are premonitions. It sounds like that you're having.
Yeah, and I won't go into the huge story with him, but I will say that what I saw and what I spoke to him about at this point in time, it's working, because from everything that I see, he has changed his ways, and I really couldn't be more proud of my brother. Right.
Wow. Okay.
So I keep seeing this. I'm proud of you, man. So, but anyway, so at this point, I'm seeing this and all the details, and him in his coffin and whatnot. And all I did was I saw that. There was no referrals back and forth. I just saw what was going on.
Okay.
But I was pulled past that. And as I got pulled past that, everything just went dark. But it was dark. It was dark, but it was light. And the only way I can really describe in that sense is when I used to live on the coast, the moons would be so bright, the moonlight would be so bright that you could walk on the beach at 11 o'clock at night, midnight, and still cast your shadow and still do shadow puppets on the beach, because that's how bright the moon is. So that was kind of what I felt like I was in, except completely surrounded, like I'm in the sky, completely surrounded, nothing around me. Okay. But it was very calm and very peaceful, and there's nothing around me. And just then I started seeing this glow up in like a light coming, and it was getting closer and closer and closer. And when it got closer and it got really, really big, it was this lady right here, kind of. Yes. And that is my good friend Sharon, who I met working in my old career of radio. Her and my old boss, they're the ones that kind of gave me my nickname of Jumpy, because I legitimately suffer from Tourette's syndrome, in case you haven't noticed by now. And anyhow, she comes to me and she gets there. And as she gets there and I'm looking at her, at this point, she looks just like that, smiling, big hair, and she is glowing from the neck down, glowing the same color as that light that I saw, except it was like a uniform. It was like, it wasn't, it was like sleeved. And she was like 300 feet tall. And she's just going, hi, Jumpy, like that. And I'm looking at her and I'm like, oh my God, Sharon. And Sharon had passed away from cancer like 8 months before my accident. So a little bit of rewind on her.
Gotcha.
Because I'm thinking why she came to me. But she's like, hi, Jumpy, hi. And I'm looking at her and I'm like, Sharon, oh my God, what are you doing? What are you doing here? Wait a minute. And even though I'm like having this experience, I still felt completely connected to everything in my head, because I'm looking at Sharon and I'm going, wait a minute. Wait, you're, and I'm all, wait, Sharon, am I? And I said, am I dead? Like that. And she goes, look, and she pointed, and back there in the back was this lady here named Barbara. And that right there is my son. I got married when I was 20 years old. My wife had him. He was born premature. He had bad health problems. He passed away when he was 6 months old. His grandmother, she was just a rock for us. That's her name, Barbara. we bury our son, and a month and a half later, we rush her to the emergency room. We don't know what's wrong, blah, blah, blah. And they come back and they're like, well, it's her cancer, and it's, and it's getting to, and me and my wife are like, her what? What? Wait,
Oh, you
what?
didn't.
And we go in, we're like, Barbara, what are you doing? She's like, no, with what you guys are going through, you didn't. And I'm like, oh my God, really? You didn't? And so about a month later, we buried her mother, Barbara. And me and Barbara, we were like that. She was a good lady. And a few days before Barbara passed away, I don't know if you've ever been in the position where you've been around people that are terminally ill, but a few days before they pass away, it's like they get a last burst of energy and they come out of their shell a little bit and they talk and everything. And I got to talking with her. And we started talking about my son. And I said, all I wanted to do was just show him how to just be a good person. And she told me, she goes, someday when it's your time, I want you to know we'll be there waiting for you. And when I saw Sharon and she said, look, and I saw Barbara, I went, Barbara, like that. And she goes, look. And I looked, and off in the corner, there was light coming down, and it was this steel merry-go-round, like the kind on the playgrounds when we were kids, where you just spin it really fast and you can pull your friend off of it.
Yeah.
And there was my son, and it was like a playground, and there were kids, and they were all playing, and he was playing right there. And I was like, oh my God, is that my son? And she just nodded at me, and I said, can I go see him? And she goes, yes.
Wow. Yeah.
And I took a step towards him, and as soon as I did, it was like when you pull two magnets apart and you can feel like right when the resistance stops.
Yeah.
And when I did that and I took that step and I felt like that resistance behind me and I stopped, it dawned on me, and all this went through my head. Shit, this is a one-way trip. If I go, wait, they're waiting for me to drive you all back. I can't, and this is going through my head. I'm like, my daughter, who's 16, still at home. I got one kid left at home. I'm thinking, I still got a daughter at home.
Yeah.
My other daughter just had a granddaughter. I can't. And I looked up at Barbara and I said, I can't. And I looked at Sharon and I said, Sharon, I can't stay.
Yeah.
And Sharon goes, okay, Jumpy, bye, Jumpy, bye. And they just all drifted away like that.
Wow.
And that's when I woke up. After that, I'm not sure how long, but when I woke up in the hospital and I'm laying there in my bed and I'm waking up and it's coming to me, and I'm fuzzy from the drugs, from being operated on, and I'm like, oh my God, where am I? And even though at that moment I'm doing that, I'm in my head, I'm like, what the hell was that? What did I? And
wow.
That's when the doctor was like, Mr. Riddle, do you know where you're at? Do you know what day it is? Do you know who the president is? And, I answered these questions, and I was like, did you figure out what was wrong with me? And he said, yeah, that surgery you had, those stitches you got, they healed up just fine. And I was like, okay, well then what was it? And he said, your spleen, which is right there where they did the other surgery, appeared to have a laceration. And what happened was it started to bleed out and your body made a scab over it, per se. And what happened was you would compromise it and it would scab over again and scab over again.
Wow.
So I would bleed out, and that was what was causing me to have those toxic seizures and not knowing. And he said, he told me that when I got on the plane, the pressurization from the cabin is what blew it wide open. And he also said, getting on that plane saved my life, because it caused everything to happen so fast that I had to go to the emergency room. Because he said, had I not got on that next plane, I probably wouldn't have gone. I wouldn't, I came home, so I wouldn't have went to the emergency room unless I started convulsing again. And he said at that point, after your third one, your next one, that could have been your last one. And
wow.
Yeah. And
and you healed and you're good.
yes, I have this huge scar that goes from here all the way down to here.
Oh, all right.
Yeah, that's so, and I don't have a spleen anymore. And I found out when they opened me up, my spleen was completely dead. The decaying process had already started on the bottom half, which is part of where all the sepsis was coming from. And my left lung was shut down. So at that point, I was in organ shutdown.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I'm gonna cry again just thinking about the joy it must have been to see that your son is okay and thriving and being looked after. And that's such an important point and message, I feel like, for those watching.
Of all the things that I came through, I mean, it destroyed my marriage. I mean, you would think you'd lean on each other, but it tore us apart. I couldn't help it. Every time we looked at each other, it was just too painful.
Yeah.
And his birthday was every year his birthday. And he was born on a Friday the 13th. I mean, talk about being born under a bad sign, whatever. And then Friday the 13th happens on the natural, like twice a year anyway, calendar days. So it's, for me, it's like a constant reminder,
Yeah, to remember him.
Yeah, but every year on his birthday, that was the one day that I couldn't do. And, I struggled with alcoholism, going on 3 years sober now, though.
Wow, great. Okay, good.
And which I started that journey before this experience. So although this just helped solidify the good choices that I made,
yes, this
was not what made me make those choices. I chose to make a choice on my own.
Yeah. This is just an amazing experience. And I'm wondering if it changed your views on death and dying and the afterlife.
It really did, because when I was absorbing those energies, like I remember in particular one of the people that I saw in the back, and I remember they were mangled and they were screaming like maybe they were in an accident, and they were just and I could feel that they were feeling every bit of that pain. And that was that was their karma. Like, karma is a very real thing, and it's a balance. And the commandments, I would say, were more like guidelines. Like if you're hunting to feed your family, that's cool. But dude, why are you shooting a giraffe to take a picture with it? Like that, like, no. And that's what I mean by, like, there's a balance, there's levels. And when I say, like, you can fail the test and there's no coming back, like some religions say all you have to do is ask for forgiveness. Well, what if you're Ted Bundy? What if you're Hitler? Does the loophole work for them? No, it doesn't. Okay. You have to live your life. That has to truly be the essence of who you are, because when they look at you and there's no control.
You're exposed.
You're exposed. Your whole fiber of being, your whole soul, everything. When they say, oh, they got a good heart, or they got a bad heart, or it's in their heart, they mean it, because it's all right here. This is just the microchip. But this right here is where the energy is. And it was like, that's right where they connected. And there was no holding back anything. They saw right into me.
Yeah. So are you thinking, I wasn't quite clear, are you thinking that some of these negative energies, bad people, bad hearts, these people, do they get to come back and try again?
They do, depending on how bad they were bad. They just might have a few things to learn. They might have a lot to learn. They might have to wait lifetimes before they're allowed to get in and try again.
Oh, right, because you said the 900 years.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? Yeah.
And the kicker for me, because this is, um, all this happened. I did a 23andMe test and I found out that my 400th great grandfather was King Niall of the Nines of Ireland. He was king,
Whoa.
and he was King Niall of the Nine Hostages because he had 9 hostages.
Huh.
Now, what king in history do you know got their stuff just because they asked for it? No. Back then, when there were kings and they took stuff. They pillaged villages. They killed. So this is my bloodline. That's where I come from. That was my great grandfather. Did he kill so many people that these are my, this is the kind of things that I question when I see the loop of like,
Sure.
maybe is that why I had to lose a child? So I know what it's like.
These are hard questions.
It is, but when I saw the circle of like sometimes, and that's how things go, it's definitely a balance. You have to, you don't have to go out tomorrow and try to save the world, but it's an essence of just being a good person,
Right.
not leaving any kind of a mess behind,
Right.
and not doing any harm. And
May I ask you, the mother of your son, is she aware of your experience?
Yes, and it's it's weird because we lost contact and I hadn't talked to her, and it was over 20 years. And just a few years ago,
Wow.
my sister-in-law found me, and I got a friend request at 3 a.m. from Christy Ann, and I'm like, Christy, I don't know anybody named Christy Ann.
Huh.
And then I was like, wait a minute, I only know one Christy Ann. Nobody ever goes by that name. Hold on, wait. Oh, whoa, and blah blah. And yeah, she found me and said hi. And yes, I reconnected with his mom. She has had since then. That was both of our only child at that point, so we didn't. There were no other children involved when we broke up. But upon seeing her again, she has had 3 daughters. And so did I. so we got to compare, like, oh yeah, we have daughters now. Yeah, it's been a long time. And
did it bring her comfort to hear about her son?
It did.
Good.
But it's a delicate subject with her still. I mean, all I got to do is, and I mean, I feel every bit of that energy, because all I got to do is just start talking about him, and it's been, this year he'd be 27, and
wow.
Yeah, and that's all I got to do is say 27 years later, all I got to do is start talking about him,
Yeah.
But when I saw where he was and what he was doing,
yeah,
and when I saw Sharon, who was just one of the most beautiful people that I met, and I realized where I was.
Yeah.
It wasn't unicorns and rainbows popping off everywhere. It was the fact that where I was so peaceful. I felt nothing bad. And that sunlight, that playground that I saw, was the entrance to the beautiful place.
Wow.
And all I had to do was walk to go there. And my son was waiting for me. And
is it your faith and hope and belief that one day you will get to hang out with him? He is still waiting for you.
It's been like the night and day switch in my life. It's made me it's made me see things a lot differently. It's made me realize that I can get to the good places if I am a good person. I don't have to show up at a building every Sunday at 10 a.m. and I don't have to make sure I kneel and say these or that doesn't count. Or
right.
If you get, and I'm not putting anybody's religion down, but I mean, if there's certain foods you don't eat, and none of that came into question.
Right.
My sexuality did not come into question. The only thing that was concerned was how I treated everybody else. That's all that I felt.
Yeah.
And
makes sense.
And when it pulled those memories out, something that I realized that I never knew. I thought I was just a sensitive guy, but it took my experience for me to connect. And it is just overwhelming now. When I saw those kids on TV and I started bawling like that, I wasn't bawling because I was scared. I am empathic. And
Yeah.
after this experience, oh my God, I go to the grocery store and I'm ready to puke before I leave. I'm like a
Really?
sponge now. And when I saw
Okay.
those kids on that TV, I felt that kid starving. I felt his desperation. And I looked at, and I just remember being like, like,
Yeah, yeah. Wow. So you're feeling that this has increased your empathic, your energetic sensitivity, your empathic
yes,
sensitivities.
yes. And I'd like to just write on that, empathic, not psychic. I can't see the future or anything, but that
Yeah,
whole like
yeah.
intuition, when you're like, my gut talks to me, or I think I'm really sensitive to that. And
Okay.
also to avoiding situations. And
Mm.
I had a part-time job that I worked on and off for 10 years. And for the first time in the history of my life, the last night that I worked there was the night that I quit on the spot. I've never done that,
Huh.
ever. And I won't go into the backstory, but I really felt like I didn't need to be there anymore.
Mm.
And
So it sounds like you have a lot of discernment and intuition and
well,
empathy.
a few weeks later down the road, there was an accident and somebody lost their life. And it was during my shift, right in my area of where I
Oh,
should be. And when
oh.
I saw that, I was like, oh my God. And that was
Mm,
the only really big one. And that was
mm,
because I went home. I felt so bad I was like, why didn't you put in a 2 week? You've never done that. You've never
mm.
done that. Dude, you're such an a-hole. You don't ever do that,
Derek,
and
I'm wondering when the book comes out. I mean,
oh,
you still have all these details, and I mean, what a storyteller. I mean, I'm thinking just write it down and let me know when you start.
I've
Um,
thought about it, but I
yeah.
much of a I'm a poet sometimes. I try, but
Ooh.
not really my strong
Well, I mean, we are getting close to being out of time, but before we have to sign off, I really want to know how the listeners can connect with you if you would like. And are you working on any projects these days that we should know about?
well, I have been working on a song. I do play guitar, and I have been writing a song for my son. Spending the last 25 years trying to write this song, and I could never
Oh,
really get past the opening intro. But ever since my experience, I've been able to work on it a little more. So
oh,
eventually, I'm hoping
okay.
to finish that. But it's actually feeling good to get some accomplishment in on that. But if
Absolutely.
anybody has any questions or anything like that,
Yeah.
they can just get to me through my Facebook link. I don't know if you have that
Okay.
available there.
I will put it in the video description. So Facebook link, best way to get a
Yeah,
hold of
and they
you.
can just direct message me, and I can
Oh,
and
cool.
just reference that they saw me here on your show, so to weed
Okay.
out the crazies because I saw them. They're in the back of the line. The crazies, they're real. They're very real.
They're going to be messaging you. No.
There you go.
Um, so before I say goodbye though, Derek, is there any last words, anything on your heart that you're thinking you just wanted to share? One more thing. I like to leave my guests with the last words just because I just really appreciate the wisdom that comes from my guests after these kinds of
Um,
experiences.
Bad people come in all sizes, shapes, colors, nationalities, sexual orientations, everything. And when I was asked and I was beamed and my life reviewed, all they wanted to know was how I treated other people. It has nothing to do with the religion or prayers. I mean, I'm not putting it down. If prayers help you, by all means do it. But it was really about whether or not I I hurt anybody, I guess. I just
No,
that's
I
it.
love that message. Be kind,
Right. Just pay it forward. Like you
pay it
said, you don't have
forward.
to run out and try to save the world, but my mom raised me with manners. Always say please, always say thank you. don't steal, you know, and like the lies, like, if your friend has a really bad haircut, you can tell them it's okay. Oh no, dude, it looks good. And you're not going to end up in the back of the line for that. But yeah, it's just all about how you treat other people. That was it. That
Yeah.
was all I was concerned about was. So
Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much, Derek. I really appreciate you hanging out with me. And thank you to everyone watching. This has been Julie McVey with Unordinary Made Ordinary, and I hope you'll join us next time for another fascinating interview. If you did enjoy this, please give it a thumbs up. And if you like this type of content, of course, subscribe and hit the bell icon. And that'll alert you to future videos if you hit that little bell. I hope you're having a fantastic day or evening wherever you are on the planet or off the planet. And I'll see you all next time. Bye.